The rumble of construction woke me up at dawn. I looked out my bedroom window and nearly dropped my coffee mug. A cement truck was backing onto my ranch. My ranch, with workers in orange vests directing it like they owned the place. Slabs of gray concrete were already being poured over my pasture. Fenced-off land that had once held my grazing horses was now a chaotic mess of steel rods, gravel, and wet concrete hardening in the morning sun. And at the center of it all, standing with a clipboard like some kind of self-appointed general, was my next-door neighbor, Clayton Briggs. A smug smile sat on his face as he directed the construction workers. I stormed down from the porch, rage boiling in my chest, but by the time I reached him, it was too late. An entire section of my land was already sealed under fresh concrete. "Clayton, what the hell are you doing? This is my ranch," I shouted, practically choking on dust and disbelief. He didn't even blink. "This land technically touches the community lot. The HOA voted to expand the visitor parking area. It's already been approved." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had lived here for nearly 7 years. My ranch was miles outside the HOA's jurisdiction. I made sure of that when I bought the property. There were no contracts, no covenants, no monthly dues. I was not part of any homeowners association. Yet here was my neighbor pouring concrete and turning my land into a parking lot like it was his God-given right. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "If you try to stop this, we'll fine you $1,000 a day for noncompliance. Don't make this harder on yourself." "Fine me?" I stood there stunned, watching them lay the final section of concrete while Clayton chuckled and walked back to his house like he'd just done me a favor. I wish I could say I kept calm, but that day I made a silent vow. Clayton had no idea who he was messing with, and I wasn't going to let this go. Not ever. Now here's how all this madness started. A few months ago, life was peaceful. My name's Jesse Dalton. I'm a retired firefighter who moved out to this ranch in Texas for peace, freedom, and wide open space. I bought 15 acres just outside a town called Hollow Creek. It was the perfect place. No nosy neighbors, no HOA drama, just the sound of nature and the freedom to do what I wanted with my land. At least that's how it started. I first met Clayton Briggs when he moved in next door. He was the type who wore polo shirts tucked into khakis even on weekends and drove a Tesla that he polished twice a day. His wife, Bethany, was no better. She once asked if I could replant my trees because they didn't match the HOA-approved greenery. I laughed, told her I wasn't part of the HOA and that was theater, so I thought. Over time, things got weird. HOA newsletters started showing up in my mailbox. I got notices saying I was in violation of fence height regulations and unapproved livestock. One letter even accused me of letting my dog bark too loudly. I ignored them all. I knew my property was exempt from the HOA rules. I had the deeds, the maps, and even the county zoning office on my side. Then the small things began. One morning, I found a no parking HOA zone sign hammered into my fence. Another time, I noticed pink spray paint on the grass marking future site plans like some development was coming. I confronted Clayton and demanded answers, but he just shrugged. Maybe someone from the committee got confused. You know how these things are. I reported the trespassing to the sheriff, but without concrete proof of who did it, there was nothing they could do. Clayton kept up the friendly neighbor act in public, but I saw through it. He was planning something. Then came the land surveyor. I caught him near the south pasture setting up his equipment. I drove over in my pickup and asked what he was doing. "Just confirming boundaries for the HOA expansion," he said without even looking up. "Expansion into what?" I asked, though I already knew. "This property," he said, pointing to my land. That night, I drove straight to the county clerk's office. I pulled every zoning map, land record, and property survey I had. Everything confirmed my ranch was outside the HOA's reach. They had no legal power over my property. None. But that didn't stop Clayton. Weeks later, while I was away on a supply run, they came in full force. Dump trucks, cement mixers, surveyors, and security. By the time I got home, part of my land had been turned into a concrete slab marked HOA parking, visitors only. I tried to stop the trucks, but the workers said they were just following orders. I called the police, and the responding officer who clearly knew Clayton said it was a civil matter. Civil? They'd paved part of my ranch. I contacted a lawyer the next morning. He was shocked. "They've got nothing legal to stand on," he said, flipping through the documents. but you'll need an injunction to stop them and fast. Otherwise, they'll finish the job and you'll have a real mess on your hands. It was already a mess. The next day, I found Clayton walking along the newly poured lot with a few HOA board members, giving them a tour. I took photos, documented every word, and called my lawyer again. But before I could file the injunction, something else happened that stopped me in my tracks. That evening, I walked out to check on my horses and found the corral gate open. The horses were gone. I called out, searched the fields, ran down the fences. Nothing. Someone had let them out. As I stood there in the dusk, my breath ragged, I saw tire tracks, fresh ones, leading from the corral gate straight across the pasture to the new concrete lot. And then I noticed something else. One of the parked construction trailers had hay stuck in its wheel wells. That was when it hit me. They didn't just let my horses out, they took them. And that's when everything changed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the porch with my shotgun across my lap, glaring out at the slab like it was some invader waiting to strike again. My Mares, Luna, and Ginger were gone. No one answered my calls to the local stables, and even animal control had no leads. At first light, I drove into Hollow Creek and went straight to the sheriff's department. The deputy I spoke to took down the report, but I could tell by the way he kept glancing at his watch that he didn't expect much to come of it. That was fine. I didn't expect them to find my horses. I intended to find them myself. I plastered flyers across town, put up posts in every local Facebook group I could find, and even called a buddy of mine who used to be a tracker. I wasn't just going to sit and wait. I was going to hit back. The next day, one of my trail cams pinged with movement. I checked the footage and caught two men in reflective vests sneaking onto my property in the dead of night. One of them had a coil of rope. The other was carrying a large duffel bag with the Hollow Creek HOA logo on it. I took the video straight to my lawyer, and by noon we had filed for an emergency injunction. And by sunset, that slab of concrete was the most watched, documented, and lawsuit-ready piece of real estate in Texas. The war had just begun. The rumble of construction woke me up at dawn. I looked out my bedroom window and nearly dropped my coffee mug. A cement truck was backing onto my ranch. My ranch, with workers in orange vests directing it like they owned the place. Slabs of gray concrete were already being poured over my pasture. Fenced-off land that had once held my grazing horses was now a chaotic mess of steel rods, gravel, and wet concrete hardening in the morning sun. And at the center of it all, standing with a clipboard like some kind of self-appointed general, was my next-door neighbor, Clayton Briggs. A smug smile sat on his face as he directed the construction workers. I stormed down from the porch, rage boiling in my chest, but by the time I reached him, it was too late. An entire section of my land was already sealed under fresh concrete. "Clayton, what the hell are you doing? This is my ranch," I shouted, practically choking on dust